Hola, buen dia. It's me, Peppermint. And when I'm not on RuPaul's Drag Race or simply being New York City's sweetest diva, I'm tuned into the fabulously empowering Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice Power Hour, coming to you every weeknight at 7 p.m. live from our good old friends at the BRCSJ Virtual HQ via their Facebook page. Tune in tonight.
We need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers.
Social justice, power hour, power hour, power hour. Social justice, power hour, power hour, power hour.
Good evening to our friends on the East Coast, good afternoon to our friends in the West, and good in-between time to our friends in those in-between spaces. Welcome, 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 my friends. Welcome to the Social Justice Power Hour. Welcome to the virtual headquarters of the Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice. My name is Robert Martin Say the Schreiber. I'm the chief activist here and your host for this evening on the Power Hour, as I have been for the past year and 9 months. Over 450 some odd shows, many of them very odd indeed. Thank you for joining us tonight in Virtual Communion. We have apologies tonight. Our show that we had scheduled with Kevin Boyle, the author of this wonderful book, The Shattering, we will not be able to bring to you tonight due to technical difficulties beyond our control. We apologize profusely for that. We hope to bring Kevin back in the very near future and have an extraordinary conversation with him. In the meanwhile, we thought it would be a good moment then to revisit this episode we had with Lizz Winstead. Lizz Winstead, who is one of the co-creators of the original Daily Show, Air America, and now works with the Abortion Access Front and Force, and is an incredible voice for reproductive rights for so many of us in the community. It was a wonderful conversation, and I think very, very appropriate for right now, considering all that we're facing with Roe v. Wade and the Supreme Court. It's a perfect time to revisit this meaningful moment with Lizz Winstead. We hope that you enjoy it. We apologize for not bringing you the show that we promised you, but I think that this show is incredibly meaningful and will be something that you'll enjoy, you'll be entertained by, and you'll be empowered by, and hopefully to move forward in this pivotal moment for reproductive rights and abortion access for all our beautifully diverse communities. So thank you to Liz for being here on that show and revisiting tonight, and thank you all for understanding. And without further ado, here's Lizz Winstead. Here's an extraordinary conversation about a very of-the-moment matter, reproductive rights, abortion access, and really about social and racial justice on so many different fronts. So enjoy, my friends. Much love and respect. And we'll see you back here in the Power Hour every single weeknight, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We are here for you. Please be here with us. But tonight, my friends, we have, and forgive me because I'm going to veer into fanboy territory here, because I've been following Lizz Winstead's career since way back in the day. I'm talking about before The Daily Show, before Air America, and we'll talk about this a little bit. There was a show called Women of the Night on HBO. We're going to talk about all of it, and of course the Supreme Court today. So without further ado, let me please welcome to the show Lizz Winstead. Liz, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
I'm so honored to be here and part of your community. What a great everything you were saying. I'm like, oh my God, I want to see that. I have to go back and watch that. Oh my God, so good. So good.
Well, we want to thank you. I know your dance card is full today. Let's start at the present, and then we'll work our way back. So the Supreme Court this morning, pretty big surprise, the second big surprise we've had in as many weeks. I was looking to our show tonight because, I do think of these things in a self-centered way, at least for the center's sake. And I thought that this would be maybe sort of a dirge, and we would be having a difficult moment together. And it's always good. That's good too. But the fact that we're celebrating, how surprised were you?
Well, here's the thing. I was not surprised in the sense that Justice Roberts is obsessed with his own legacy and very obsessed with precedent. And so I had a feeling that because the Supreme Court, the thing that's so interesting about this case, and it didn't get very much press attention. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, there was a case that came out of Louisiana, the one that they just ruled on, where they were trying to say that if you provide abortion in Louisiana, the only way to do so is if you could have privileges at a nearby hospital. No other sort of outpatient service requires hospital admitting privileges. Allows you in any post kind of problems or anything. And so the thing that's the trap on in this hospital admitting privileges deal is, in order to get admitting privileges at a hospital, you have to show the hospital that you can provide enough cases to make it seem like a realistic thing. Because if the hospital allows a doctor, they have to allow that. They have to insure that doctor. That doctor has to provide enough cases and show that they have enough cases and that there's a need. So abortion is so safe that doctors can't say, here's the case I'm going to bring forward, therefore these privileges. So instead, the hospital will deny an abortion provider the privileges, and then the state will say, oh, the hospital didn't grant you privileges, therefore we're going to close you down because you don't have the privileges. So we have a physician basically saying, you're not going to let me provide abortion because this hospital won't give me privileges I don't need because what I do is so safe. And so 4 years ago, the state of Texas brought the exact same law to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, this is egregious, this is garbage, and we think that it's unconstitutional. Now, what's fascinating is John Roberts ruled against abortion rights in that case, but upheld the precedent of that case now. And because it was just 4 years ago, he wasn't about to say, oh, I've completely changed my mind, or something has completely changed, because the only thing that's changed is that now Brett Kavanaugh and Gorsuch are on the court, and they're both anti-abortion activists and extremists. So, having said all that, it's a good day for this particular case, but John Roberts, in siding with the majority today, also said it is precedent and precedent alone, which brought me to side with the, with this ruling. If this had been a different abortion case and we had not ruled on it, we may be seeing a very different thing. So expect that a myriad of cases, which are in various stages of the circuit court now, will be coming towards the Supreme Court. And then we may be looking at something very different in a year or even in 6 months. So that's where we're at. So while I feel excited, I also know that John Roberts' intentions means another case could mean something very different for access to abortion.
So it's interesting to me, and forgive me if I'm wrong, you know this better than I do, but it was only the men on the Supreme Court who mentioned abortion in the decision. Is that correct?
Well, it was in the 138-page decision, 132 pages were dedicated to how the men felt about it.
Right.
And so it's very fascinating to me that it was John Roberts and Justice Breyer who sided with the 3 women on the court to make up the majority. So that means that the other 4 men just had a field day in having their feelings about why they feel entitled to control the bodies of people who are pregnant. And the other part of what's interesting about this case is there was a second part, which was, and it came down in the same 5-4 decision, and that was whether or not a clinic that provides abortion has the standing to sue on behalf of their patients. And that was one, and that part of the case was something that really scared me, because if the court decided that clinics couldn't sue, it would be up to somebody who was needing abortion care to have to create lawsuits to prove that they have been hampered by these laws. And it's a pregnancy is 9 months. If you need an abortion, you're not going to get one through the course of the time that you would be suing. So inevitably, there would be no one who was ever able to sue these unconstitutional laws that are coming from the states. And it just puts somebody who is seeking the abortion care they need in a position to have to be a public face who would have to come forward. And we've seen how cruel and evil anti-abortion activists can be. To have to put somebody through that is just heartless. And the second part of it is it would have meant that all of the cases that are lingering now of these unconstitutional laws that they keep passing that are in some form of litigation in the lower courts, those cases would all just go away, because all of those cases are being presented by clinics on behalf of their patients. And so the laws that they were challenging would all go into effect. So they ruled against that, which felt like a big wipe across the brow. But we're just going to be seeing new cases come forward. And with our president, who has stacked our lower courts now and filled all the vacancies in the lower courts, that means that we don't have courts that are necessarily going to be listening to the rule of law or following constitutional law, that they may be activist jurists on behalf of the anti-abortion movement. And so, we have to look at making sure that our state legislatures and our governors and our local politicians are going to be fighting not only to roll back some of these terrible laws, but really putting abortion forward legislation in place so that people can access abortion safely and without prohibitive cost, without prohibitive regulations, because we know that these laws primarily affect Black folks, people of color, poor folks, because it seems to be the priority to make sure that the oppressed are constantly more oppressed. So it's my job to make sure that we try to level the playing field.
I'm glad you mentioned your job, because I assume that everybody is on the level of my utter fanboy about you. So you are the founder of two organizations, Abortion Access Force and Abortion Access Front. So
Yes.
Tell us, first of all, what's the difference between the two, and then also how your journey got you to there.
Sure.
I
That's a long journey, but I'm glad we have some time. So abortion, it's in the world of how we talk about politics, it's categorized into specific places based sort of on how you get funding, what your tax situation looks like. So Abortion Access Force is the political arm where we try to expose the politicians who are creating the laws, pushing forward a real anti-abortion agenda legislatively. In order to talk about them, you can't get a tax deduction if you were to make a donation to our organization. It is called a 501c4. So basically, we are trying to expose the politicians who are actively putting the laws in place. Abortion Access Front tries to raise the issue. And what we do at Abortion Access Front is we travel around the country in non-COVID times, and we do comedy and music shows in states and cities and communities where these laws are really affecting people. And when we bring along nationally known comics and nationally known musicians to do shows, and then we invite the provider in town and the local activists in town to have a conversation with the fans of our performers to get them excited about activism, to get them involved in the issue, and to help those folks join on with the local activists so we can grow community support for the clinics, and also for the folks who are fighting local legislation, which is really, really fun to be able to be in a room with 400 people who are socially active, but maybe aren't intrinsically involved with the issue. And when they hear that they can support the clinic in a myriad of ways, they can join the activist groups that are already existing right in the room, they can sign up, and then they can in turn be making sure that our clinics are doing okay, that they have the support that they need. It's a really good mash of utilizing what I do, which is performing and caring and learning about the issue. So to bring my fans and the fans of our performers together and say, you guys live in this town, let's all get together and really help out. It just feels really wonderful. And then the other thing we do when we're out there is we tour the clinic, and then we find out what they need, because one of the dirty secrets of what happens when you're an abortion provider, especially in a hostile city or state, is you often can't get the services that a regular small business would get because people have feelings about abortion. So whether that is lawn care, whether that is getting your exam rooms painted, whether that is having your fence fixed, whether that is, just getting your plumbing. So we will go in and do a public works project at the clinic. We may redo their garden. We may do their landscaping. We may bring massage chairs in so that the folks that work there throughout the day can come in and get a 15-minute massage just to have some self-care. So it's important for us to let these folks know that we understand and see and love them, and that once we learn and understand the needs they're having a hard time meeting, we will bring that to the stage, to the community, to the conversation, and get people to commit to being those interfaces. And I'll never forget being in Oklahoma City, and we were talking, and this guy raises his hand and he was like, are you telling me that activism can mean I have a landscaping business, I get a client, I get paid, and if I do their landscaping, that's activism? And I said, yes. You parking your van in front of that clinic every week saying, I'm so glad that they are in this community and I support them, is a huge boost to the clinic, to the escorts that work at the clinic. And it's really fun to have that light bulb go off and to say to folks, think about activism in 100 different ways. What are your abilities? What can you do? Activism isn't always just you have to give money. So many folks don't have money to give, but maybe they have a little bit of time. Maybe they have a skill that they can bring. Being able to open up those doors for people so that they can feel like they're participating in making their community whole is what we're all about.
It's amazing. I mean, it's just, I was in love with you before, and now it's even more. You've ruined me. What you're doing is so boots in the ground, but it's also so incredibly smart. It seems like an obvious thing, but to bring it together like that, to bring in, the glam aspect of it, and the celebrities and the folks that will come to town and excite people, but then say, hey, now that you're in the room, we're locking the doors and we're going to tell you how to make a difference. And then people are like, oh, I can do that.
That's right. And if you make it simple and if you make it rewarding, it's pretty cool. And, I have to be honest, like I've been an activist for 100 years. And it wasn't until I started touring the country visiting clinics that I realized there was a hole in the movement that I could fill. I didn't want to go in and do somebody else's work. There's so many incredible people on the ground doing that work and doing, incredible escort programs, incredible abortion funds, incredible people doing all kinds of work. But the piece that was missing was who's looking out for the providers to make sure that they're okay, understanding that when they drive home at night, they have to sometimes take a different route every night, to understand what they go through every day, to understand that that when they go to work, it's very intense, and that there's often not a time to stop to even eat lunch. Or like if things go late, who's making sure that they have that extra money in their pockets for childcare? And when we realized that if we checked in with each of these clinics and got to know them, and we could find out the needs of each clinic, we could really provide a service that kept folks feeling whole, that kept them understanding that somebody was looking out for their entire way they live their life. And that if there was a pool of money that we could raise for, so that they need to work a couple extra hours, that money could go to that extra daycare. It was really important for us to meet each clinic and each of the workers at the clinics where they live, and find out what self-care looked like for them, and what sustainability looked for them, and what does community engagement look like for them.
It reminds me so much, if you don't mind me sharing a story about our community outreach coordinator. Her name is Carol Watchler, and she's been doing this work for decades. An inspiration to all of us. She is what I say, all of our chosen mother. And her wife, Ann Baker, was an incredible advocate for reproductive rights. And she was the person who realized that all these, what were thought of as local yokels who were going out and protesting at abortion clinics, were actually being directed on a national front. And this is before the internet and before, all those things that you can put these things together. She had like probably one of those like threads where you have in your basement, when you're—
We have one of those creepy thread boards.
She was the one that alerted the FBI to the idea that this was not isolated instance, that these people were going to different towns in different states. And then finally their records were being tracked, and these people were being exposed as not just, I'm going to go protest here today. This was a dedicated movement, and she did incredible work. And her name was Ann Baker. And the work you're doing now just really seems like a natural extension of that.
Well, I kudos, thank you, Ann, and thank you, Carol. And just to add to that, it's part of what we are doing is that exact work, and exposing. When it comes to the anti-abortion movement and racist and Islamophobia and anti-LGBTQ, the intersections, they're very intersectional in their hatred, right? And so what we're trying to do is gather our folks who we're working with in all of those, who focus their primary areas, whether it's Islamophobia, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's, working on anti-racist stuff, understanding that so many of these anti-abortion leaders, they lead with those really like horrifying signs, and they really lead with abortion. And that can be so overwhelming for folks doing the other work. And they do that by design, so that people don't investigate them further. And we found out that their origins come from white supremacy, and their origins come from when they're not outside the abortion clinic. The leader of Operation Save America, which is one of the leading anti-abortion groups, is burning Qurans outside of mosques. We took them down. They tried to boycott in Milwaukee a drag queen story time for the kids, and we got so many folks out that they ran away scared, because we had so many folks supporting drag queen story time. And so we want to expose them, because I think so much of what happens in our activism is they become, for white folks who have been able to have the privilege of not participating in the lives of, not just having a full life that's full of people that aren't like them, their privilege has allowed them to marginalize these anti-abortion people as fringe, when on politicians, they are lobbying, they're helping write legislation. And so part of what we want to do is really reintroduce them, not as fringe, but as these people are creating a new way of life that we need to tamp down, and understand that they are crafting the way that they want all of us to live, and it's pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I love what you said, intersectionality of hatred. You think about how we use that term, but
Yes.
you also have to look at how they use that and how we can look at all the organizational strengths that we have can also be used against us. And it's great that we can put it together. And we did the first Drag Queen Story Hour here in Princeton. Unbelievably, it hadn't been done before. And we didn't even think about protesters, our little liberal enclave. We thought we were all safe. And as we're downstairs doing this wonderful thing with hundreds of folks, families, beautiful, with harmonica sunbeam, and just, the most beautiful moment you can imagine, all of a sudden we hear that upstairs there are these protesters. And not one of them were local, not one of them were from town. They all were literally bussed in to spread hatred. And it's an amazing thing how they don't have any sort of awareness that you have this group of people who are local, who are the people, who are sharing love and warmth and camaraderie and family, and they bring themselves somewhere to spread hatred. I don't understand how it registers, and that's why, that's one of the problems, really, right? Because you can't get into that mindset.
Yeah, and I think that we have been, what's been one of the most rewarding things that we have done as an organization was through our travels in meeting with, and I'm sure you're going to totally relate to the scrappy activist groups who are like incredibly underfunded, so powerful, so enthusiastic. We have befriended them in over 50, I'm going to say 50, but it's over 50 communities around the country. And we have formed our own coalition where we communicate and have meetings at least once a month. We get together annually when Operation Save America decides to take on a town. We all go to that town and support the locals who are fighting back against these destination haters. And then we also, through having these conversations, what do you need in Jackson, Mississippi? I see Dorinda Hancock, who is the head at the Powerhouse, at the Pink House Defenders, who are incredible clinic escorts in the last clinic in Mississippi, part of our team, and they're just incredible. And there they are, in their incredible organization called We Engage, which helps people form and use engagement with protesters outside of their clinics. They're incredible. So if they have something going on in Jackson where it's like, we need umbrellas because it's so hot, we'll figure out a way to get them umbrellas, right? Or we need more people to come up for XYZ. We try to make that happen. And so or we're doing a project, can someone help with a graphic design for this project we're doing? So everybody volunteers their skills to help their friends in this larger bucket of small activists. And so then we have power in numbers, and that it feels like so rewarding. I mean, it's just what it's all about. You also learn how different regionally it is with what the struggles are for the local activists on the ground. Something in Toledo, Ohio might look very different than in Chicago or in Jackson, Mississippi, or in Charlotte, North Carolina, or in Louisville, Kentucky. And to be able to have the activists come forward and say, here's what we are struggling with, and here's what we could use from the power of our collective organizations. And it's like almost always we're able to provide on some level a solution to what a small organization might not be able to get on their own. And that feels really good.
It's amazing is what it is, because you have so many celebrities who use their stature, their platform to raise money, and that's delightful, and to bring some attention to a cause or a platform. But the fact that you, and the organization, of course, it's not just you.
No, it's not just me. We must say that. It is incredible people. I have an incredible team of people who work hard every day in all these different departments and who are just tirelessly making sure that we are working at the intersections of, racial justice and reproductive rights and working with a reproductive justice framework, making sure that we're centering the needs of the people who are most profoundly affected by all of this garbage, and following the leadership too of incredible Black and brown leaders in our movement, which feels really great.
And that's what it is, right? That's what I love, is all y'all stick with it. You don't go into a town, you have one big, hullabaloo, and then you leave town.
Yeah. What we realize is what we can do is gather through bringing this sort of really cool USO sort of show together, where you have smart conversation, humor, music, activism, and you kind of combine that, right? When I can bring people together, I always say to the activists who will come on stage in the clinic, it's up to you, you guys. It's up to you. I will lead you in conversations, but it's up to you and your wonderfulness to let these folks know what you need, because you inspired me to come. So have the confidence to inspire them to come, because you're awesome. And all people need to know is that you exist and that you are a resource for them to help. And so often, all people who are doing the good work need is a platform to let people know that they're around and what they're doing, and folks will flock to it.
So, again, I assume that people know, are intimately familiar with your history as I am. But, we're talking now with Lizz Winstead. And first of all, before I go on, I want to thank our intern extraordinaire. Ashley is in the comments section pulling up all the
Ashley's doing it, and I see some of my people here. I see Dorinda and I see Kim, who are the partners as Pink House Defenders and as part of We Engage, which is an incredible nonprofit you can read about in Jackson, Mississippi. And I feel really excited that those folks are over here learning about y'all and being part of the conversation.
And that's what I wanted to say. The second part is, this is a conversation. I know that between me and Liz, it's tough to get a word in edgewise, but if you want to share something, please do feel free to make a comment in the section, and we'll throw it up there, as much as we can. And if you have a question or a comment, or you just want to get a snap out, please do. We look for, Liz is a performer, and I'm an erstwhile performer, so we look for a little bit of affirmation every now and then, right? So let's talk about that. How does Lizz Winstead get from, and we'll go backwards now, get from Abortion Access Front, Abortion Access Force, and then going back, you have Air America, and you're working with people like Rachel Maddow and Chuck D. I would have loved to be a fly in the wall, and if you want to invite either one of them on the show, please do. And then before that, folks don't know this, and it's a Shonda, that you are the co-creator of The Daily Show, and this was even before Trevor Noah. This was before Jon Stewart. This was with Craig Kilborn.
Yes.
You must have some stories about that. But then before that, and this is what I love, there's no direct line between HBO's Women of the Night to the Abortion Access Force. There's a journey there.
There is.
And in between, of course, and I do want to shout this out, in between there's a book, Liz Free or Die, which is wonderful. And everything you're enjoying about Liz tonight is in the book and more so. And please, we have this on our bookshop.org Social Justice Power Hour book list. And what's great about bookshop.org is a percentage goes back to independent bookstores and the authors. So buy this book after you're so.
Thank you.
So let's go all the way back.
All right. So, gosh, it's interesting. So the journey of becoming a stand-up, I was just literally the youngest of 5 kids in my family, and I just wanted to find a space where I could complete a sentence. And someone dared me to do stand-up, and I tried it, and I was hooked.
And this is Minnesota, right?
This is in Minnesota. And so I was doing stand-up, and I've always been a person who cared about politics, but I didn't really have it in my act. And then when that first Gulf War happened, and George Bush, the first one, the dad, was just basically setting us up, and our media was looking at war and presenting it to us as though it was this detached miniseries. I was just like suspect, and I just kind of was like, I'll never forget, I was on a blind date, actually, and the guy was kind of the worst, and we were at a bar, and it was the night of the Gulf War launched, and when it started on TV, I'll never forget, I wasn't looking for any politics. I was kind of scared we were going to war. And when he was on watching the TV at the bar, and he said, "This is really awesome," like watching the bombs and seeing that green light, I just thought to myself, are they broadcasting a war or trying to sell me a war? And the fact that I didn't know the answer to that was an aha moment, in the sense of, as much as I believe in epiphanies and or callings. And I just was furious and started writing material that was more political, and started getting my information and news from people other than just straight up the New York Times. And I became more activist in my comedy, and and then it was like I was trying to figure out what to do, and I was working. Jon Stewart had a talk show that I was a segment producer on, and it got canceled, and he went off to do he got a development deal with David Letterman's company, so he was developing shows, and my bosses at the show became the heads of Comedy Central, and they said, we want to do a news show that's on every day. And I was like, oh my God, I have been in my stand-up over the course of the past 5 years, really just kind of tearing apart what news is and what it means, and how much of it is garbage and just press releases, it feels like, from the administration. So can the show itself be a character? I'd love to do a show where you turn the sound down and you didn't know if it was a comedy show or a news show. And so they were like, okay. And I was like, what? Okay. All right. And then here was the weird part. They actually said, we think a show like this needs to develop on the air. So instead of doing a pilot to see if we like it, we're going to give you a year to work out the bugs, which is, in television, unheard of. No one gives anybody anything. And so I was like, first of all, do you know I've never done a TV show? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. All I know is that I hate the media and I hate politicians. So we're going to try to go. So when we were casting the show and hiring, we hired people from news, disgruntled news people, people who were fed up with the bullshit, people who were fed up with editors who were rejecting actually real stories. Newsrooms are the darkest, funniest places on earth. And so we were off to the races, and it was great. And then I realized through The Daily Show, and then even into Air America, which was also a for-profit radio network, that you just could only go so far if you were doing comedy or promised to do comedy. You had to be funny first. And I wanted to be funny and smart at the same time, in an ebb and flow situation rather than a punchline situation. And I also was an activist. And I had to come to terms with the fact that they hired me to be a comedy writer and not to be an activist. And so I had to make a decision so I was at Daily Show, and then I went to Air America, and I had some other stints in between. But I realized that if I wanted to combine comedy and activism and really front face with activism and be funny, that I needed to create a venue for myself that was going to allow me to do that, because corporate entities it's too confusing. They don't want to take a risk on this whole new platform and way of life. And I just thought, when I do stand-up and when I am doing bits on The Daily Show and when I'm on Air America, there is a market for what I do. And I want to create an entity with which I can do it all the time. And I don't want to have to tamp it down or do it the amount of time that some suit who's never had to pay his bills being creative was going to tell me was going to be enough to do. So I decided that I wanted to create a new way forward that combined the activism and the entertainment so that somebody who's thinking about being a comedy writer or somebody who's thinking about being a stand-up who wants to talk about social issues would say, gosh, I want to try to work on John Oliver or Sam B or The Daily Show or Abortion Access Front. Like, to be able to have people look at our organization as a place where you could hang a creative hat, where you also knew that making a difference was part of the soup that you were going to create. And so I just decided I'll just do it myself. And, you know, I knew that there was going to be a lot of sacrifices I made, but sacrifices that I don't really care about. Like, you take a pay cut because it turns out activism and nonprofits doesn't pay the same as show business. I don't know. Breaking news, everybody. But also it's like, what do I need? I don't care. But the other thing that was really cool about it is that once I decided that I wanted to create a space and hold space to do that, the friends I knew that I knew had activist hearts and cared about issues but were pursuing an entertainment career were like, thank you. I will come and hang my hat in the hallway that you created. I know that you'll write a funny video for me that I can trust. I know you'll create a show that's going to make change. And it takes the pressure off of me, who's trying to do all this other stuff, to have to also create an activist space for myself. So to be able to create that space for people who are doing other things as well has been incredibly rewarding. And so I find it so interesting when people are like, do you miss show business? I'm like, I'm performing constantly. I'm on the road constantly. I didn't give anything up. I just created the way that I wanted to be in the world.
So, but I hope that you do this. I hope you see this. What you created with The Daily Show is now Sam B and John Oliver. I mean, literally John Oliver.
Thank God. How exciting is that?
They're like your children. They're like without The Daily Show, there's none of what keeps so many of us sane and makes us feel safe. Yeah. And I want to thank you on behalf of our community, because I know there's so many people that feel the same way.
Well, that's really nice. But I think just making that foundation so that Sam B could create how Sam B wanted to do it and how John Oliver could want to do it, to have that create a foundation of a comedy show that could go off into so many different directions with different voices and then bore fruit of all these people. I feel really excited that, and every time a new show comes out of that show that's successful, it just reproves that you can combine giving a shit and being funny, and you don't have to lose either thing in the process. And that was the part that's so incredibly hard to convince suits, that you don't have to do less of this and more of this. You just have to do both well, because smart comedy and smart politics and activism are a beautiful combination. Dumb comedy kills your politics and kills your activism because it's just like lame. And, if you aren't clear on what your objective is with the activism that you're trying to sell with your comedy, both things will die in the vine also. So just clarity is key.
But that's the gift you gave to them and to us, is that Sam B, whose shirt this is, by the way, and John Oliver.
I love that shirt. I have that shirt in pink.
Yeah, one of my favorite things. And I thought, is it too on the nose for tonight? I couldn't.
You know what? I don't think it's ever saying you're a feminist can't happen enough. So I think you're great. Yes.
But Sam B and John Oliver have created something that is uniquely their own. They're doing the same. It's the same platform you're talking about, which wouldn't be possible without you. That's like historical fact, okay, and you have to accept it. But the fact that they can then take it and run with it, that both their shows, especially both their shows, are exactly that. They're exemplars of activism and comedy working hand in hand. And sometimes one takes the lead and sometimes the other takes the lead. There are things that John Oliver does that are so funny and you find yourself laughing till it hurts. But then you find yourself thinking till it hurts the next moment.
Well, and it's also too, like, you know, you look at Dulce Sloan now and you look at Ashley Nicole Black and who is like, you know, and you look at Larry Wilmore and you look at folks who are, you know, incredibly smart. And when people, everybody, you know, has it, humor is so different and what people respond to and what you connect with humor is so different. And so talking about race and gender and everything else in between and using humor to do it, I think is super important. And especially in an era and when people are, I mean, social media has its giant pitfalls, but to be able to have folks who've been marginalized and who've been the butt of jokes and who have never been able to say, you know what, that is just fucking offensive, to be able to do so and to have a community with which to do it and feel support so that some of this bullshit can go away is also really good. You know, come to terms with your weird decision to do blackface. I'm still utterly shocked that people co-signed on doing that. And it's like, look at the room that you were in. From the second that idea came out of somebody's face, if that idea churned all the way into ending up on a broadcast, that means there was no one in any of your rooms, any of your decision making, who could say to you, who knew or could say to you, do you understand what you are doing and why this is a terrible idea? Does that mean you don't have Black leadership? Does that mean that you have folks, if you hire people on your team who are people of color, that they aren't in leadership positions? They can't say something to you for fear of retribution? Is it just all white and everybody thinks it's funny and everybody can call everything satire and it's satire? I mean, is it? Like, what's the satire? Like, what are you satirizing? Like, you know, for nobody to ask those questions of their team and have that make it all the way to air, that means that every step of the way through the process of making a thing, there hasn't been people in leadership to challenge a white supremacist decision-making process. And we're coming to learn that that's the case now. And you know, if it's putting you off, well, sorry that you build a foundation of shittiness that you have to switch. Like, I don't have any problem. I don't have to go back and go, oh God, I have to stop my whole everything I was doing because I never fucking did it. So I'm good.
And people say, oh, I'm so tired. And you think, if you're so tired, can you imagine, you know, the people who've been oppressed for centuries, how, you know.
I'm so tired, white people. I'm like, I'm tired of you talking about how tired you are. Calm down.
So one thread I want to pull at that I think is really interesting that I've heard throughout what you've been talking through tonight, there's a loyalty that you have that I think is so important to the work you do. You know, when you talk about you were doing a segment producer for Jon Stewart, and then you got The Daily Show, and then Jon Stewart ends up at The Daily Show. That's not by accident, you know. And I see that through, you know, and you know all these names. You've mentioned all these folks who you've worked with, and it seems like you've kept them all close to you in one way or another. And I think that's why it works so well, is that you understand community is multifaceted.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's it's interesting because it's a pretty complicated skill set to execute political comedy in different ways, right? You have to the first thing is you have to do it whether you are working on a TV show or getting on stage at the back of an Irish bar and telling jokes for 20 people. It's just part of you, right? And so you care about the issues, and then you have to be funny, and then you have to be able to be funny in the tone of the show, right? So all of the people who've done it have been able to craft all of that for themselves. So there's a difference. The thing is, you don't want to poach people. You want everybody to go off and do as many of these kind of shows as possible, so that all these different viewpoints that lead to the same breaking down the barriers, right? You want them all to go. So it's kind of like, who do I want to work with, and who do I want to do their own thing? You know, and there's some people who love to just bounce around and write on shows. And there's some people who want to be in lead shows and be the front face of the show or be the head writer. So there's people who I have worked with time and time again. There's people who have come in and out of projects. But I'm always supportive of all of them, because without all of them, it seems like it's a niche thing rather than a marketable way to do business. And so there's a lot of really good, passionate people who are doing really great work. And I feel really lucky to have been able to work with them, have them work for me, partner with me, create with me. It's really great. And especially since so many different places in media have opened up, it's that many more places where people are doing really cool things. And so whether it's a TV show, whether it's Sam Cedar doing his incredible podcast show, whether it's Wonket being an incredible online news resource that uses humor and just, you know, takes people, bad guys down in profound ways by also making you smarter. You know, the Mark Maron's podcast, you know, whatever it is, and wherever we're at, you know, there's just a lot of people doing really incredible work. And I feel lucky that I have been able to cross paths with them on some level.
What I think I really love about this conversation most of all is how really at peace you seem, and you really seem to be happy. Like, your journey has taken you to so many places that have been really meaningful for a lot of us. But I think in that journey, it wasn't as meaningful for you personally. You couldn't find the solace and the strength and the platform you really wanted. It seems like you do now. And that makes me very personally happy, because you've given.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, you know, the thing, I am incredibly fulfilled in my work. I mean, sometimes I'm just like a horrible person, like anybody at work. I know that. Like, but also, you know, if I was to say what is the most frustrating and or disappointing part of my work, it is the constant letdown by other progressives who don't understand why centering reproductive rights and abortion is central to the human rights of half of the communities that are living with a uterus. What it means to, how do you say that you fight for human rights and the total emancipation of a person if you don't fundamentally understand and want to participate in the fight for someone's decision on whether or not they want to start a family? Because that is the beginning of your whole journey. What happens with your body and how you want to be in the world and what your capacities are for parenting or not is the very beginning of your own road. And for 5 minutes, as a person who says they care about that, thinks that there's caveats that can be negotiated around that, and thinks that it's somebody else's fight, not theirs, and to not understand why it's a priority makes me so incredibly sad. And so if I can say one thing, it is progressives who are working front facing in a different space, and you haven't considered how access to abortion and access to reproductive care and bodily autonomy fits into a priority space for you, talk to us. Let's have a conversation, because I want it to all understand that we are living in these intersections, and it's just vital.
And you pre-answered my next question. I was going to ask you, how do we make this moment into a movement? How do we move forward? But the very essence of who you are and the example of what you're doing is how we do that.
Yeah, you just live in it. You decide where it lives in your life. And if organizations, and this is what I hope for my organization, I hope my organization can provide anybody who comes forward, learns more about it, asks questions about how they can participate. My hope is that we have created so many avenues of care and advocacy that you can pick the one that feels organic to you and that feels like it is part of who you are, and that you just wake up and want to be doing that, because it's not forcing a round peg into a square hole, or not feeling overwhelming to you, and that there's too many requirements of you. You know, if you want to do it, we got you. We can help you.
So I want to thank you so much. You have an out at 8 o'clock. I know that you.
I do. I have an out at 8 o'clock. I'm so sorry, but I'll come back anytime.
We would love to have you back, because you didn't even tell your Woman in the Night story. So you always the Woman.
I know. So we have things to talk about.
And it's official. You're coming back. Just so everybody knows, to have Liz today, on this day when the Supreme Court makes its decision, her dance card was full before, and I'm sure it got 1,000-fold even more so. And the fact that you kept our little power hour in your book, we really appreciate that.
Well, I am such a believer in these incredible spaces that are providing great and wonderful just community, have as much right to my time as anybody else. I prioritize based on how I feel like people really care about community, and you guys are great. And so thank you for having me on. And it's always nice to have a longer conversation so that we can talk about what my organization does, and talk about Abortion Access Front. If you don't know about us, we're Access Front on all the social medias. Follow us, sign up for our mailing list. We're always good with giving you good information to do, and we always have really good media that we share, and we try to make you smarter and try not to hit you with donation shit constantly, because that is no fun. But it's a good place to, if you're thinking about acquainting yourself or upping your activism when it comes around reproductive rights, and especially learning about why we need to support our independent providers, come join us, aafront.org. That's us.
Yep, we got you. We flashed it up. It's in the comments section, and also this book too, Liz for Your Diet. Go buy it.
There's my book.
Buy one for yourself, as I always say. Buy one for a friend. Buy one for an enemy. You'll become a friend. Make sure your local library has a copy. Call and request it. And that's a phone, by the way. People don't know that anymore, but that's a phone. That's a phone. All right. Thank you. Really.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you. And thank you so much to the Rustin Center for doing these amazing talks. They really are helpful. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you again soon. Be
Great.
well.
Bye.
Everybody, that's the amazing, phenomenal Lizz Winstead, co-creator of The Daily Show, co-creator of Air America, and now such an important movement, the Abortion Access Front, the Abortion Access Force. Go friend, follow, and like them, as you will our center as well, I hope. Please, these are the kind of moments when we can seize upon being a community together and supporting each other. Reproductive rights are, of course, social justice, are, of course, human rights, and we need to make sure that all of our community is kept safe and kept respected and loved. Speaking of, gosh, this has been a great hour and exactly what a lot of us needed, I'm sure. So thank you, Lizz Winstead. Thank you all for coming out. We've had an incredible audience tonight to watch this, and we are always so honored by your presence. As I said at the top of the hour, I'll say at the bottom of the hour, we supply the hour, you supply the power. So thanks for being with us. Make sure you come out every weeknight, 7 p.m., 4 p.m. Pacific time. We do these talks with folks nationally known like Lizz Winstead and with folks, community activists and local leaders as well. This week we have a banner week. Tomorrow night we, of course, have our usual queer yoga where we take a breath and we allow ourselves to be at peace in community. So we thank our yogi master, Jasmani, for bringing us to that as well. We love you all. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you each and every weeknight here at the Social Justice Power Hour. Thanks for your time, your energy, and your spirit. We'll see you soon.
In every community, a group of angelic troublemakers.